Thank you, Professor. Welcome, dear students, dear guests. Our first session is on promoting innovative research in economics from the perspective of South America. So I would propose first presentation of our dear guests, our professors, and later there will be the time for questions, comments, and so on from the Professor Gocłowska and also from the students, guests, and so on. Professor, time is for you. Please, Professor Ildeberto, Rodello, give us a presentation.
Dobry. I'm really glad to be here today. For me, it's an honor. Thank you for the invitation. It's not my first time here. I was here in 2018. I was an invited lecturer in the International Week, a very good event here. I was also in remote mode in 2021, also attending the International Week. As a way, I feel at home here to talk to you again. And I also very happy to be here, to see this auditorium full of students, and I would like to congratulate you about that.
Okay, let me see presentation of Professor Rodello.
My presentation is not here yet. So, while they are preparing my presentation here, I prepared two different presentations for you. The first one that is supposed to be that first section, it's about a more specific presentation about my research area. I will talk a little bit about data science, because I'm a computer scientist. I work nowadays in a business administration faculty, but I'm a computer scientist from the information technology area. And in the second session, I will talk a little bit about a more general presentation about Brazil and about the potential areas of research in Brazil. Okay? So if you have some problem, I can initiate. Okay. I had prepared a presentation. I'm, as Yuri that did it yesterday, he talked a little bit freely speak, but I prepared some support because I have some numbers and presentations for you. So just regarding my curiosity, are there some students here from past international weeks that are attending my course or not? 2021. I asked to Professor Małgorzata and she said probably no, but I'm, for curiosity, asking to you. No? No, yeah. Yeah, okay. Oh, great. Okay. So, here are my presentation. As I told you, my first presentation is about my research area related to data science. I prepare these topics for you. First, I will talk about my university, University of São Paulo. I'm not living in São Paulo City. I told you we have 8 campi, and I work in one of these campi. I have, after that, to talk a little bit about data science. It's the moment topic, I believe, but it's a topic that we can discuss for a long time ago. And going deep in the data science, I will talk a little bit about the jurimetrics, and this is my recent research area, and we studied some lawsuits, okay? And I present to you a case of my research group, the habeas data research group, and finishing with some comments. Okay, what about University of São Paulo? University of São Paulo is the largest and the better university of Brazil, and one of the best universities in Latin America. We have almost 100,000 undergraduate and graduate students spread in this camp here. I live here, Ribeirão Preto, okay? In addition to Ribeirão Preto, we have a campus in other cities spread in São Paulo state. São Paulo state is this state here. We have 25 states in Brazil. So we have here the Brazilian map, and São Paulo state is here. It's the most economically active state in Brazil. Okay, we have a very huge diversity in terms of cultural and economics in Brazil, and São Paulo, regarding the economics, is the most powerful. We have in the University of São Paulo about 2,000 to 5,200 faculty members, and this number of programs, and we are responsible for 22% of all scientific production in Brazil. It's a state university, it's a public and free of tax university. The students didn't pay anything to study there. So, let's talk a little bit about data science. I believe you have heard about. What is data science? Data science, it's a mix of several areas, as statistics, mathematics, computer science. That's the reason because I'm working on that. And we have the specialization of one specific area, for instance, in my case, related to the law. Okay? Our colleague here, Professor Evert, is a lawyer, and I work with lawyers there. We will have a multidisciplinary team working. I will tell you about this in advance. So, then we can apply artificial intelligence, machine learning, statistics methods, whatever, to try to improve decision. That's the reason, because I studied and I get some bridge with a business to improve decision making. The life cycle is more or less like this. I'm presenting you the CRISP data mining methodology from IBM. You need to understand the business problems, to understand your data. In my case, I'm trying to understand the judiciary problems and to understand the data, the lawsuit data, the defendants, the time, the subject, etc. And here we have the data in the middle. Then you need to prepare the data And then you have there the extraction, transformation, and loading, etc. And to develop a model, to deploy this model, and to evaluate. If you do not have your results, you can back here to understand the business problem and to try to improve and etc. Then you have this cycle getting improvements. So, what are the challenges? First of all, I believe we have the huge amount of data. And these data are from different types. You have text data, you have unstructured data, structured data, you have a PDF, you have Excel files, CSV, etc. And you need to mix. That's a challenge mainly for the information technology. Okay? In my case, you're studying law suites. In Brazil, you have at least 100 different courts and different levels. And the information about these courts are different. And we need to make some kind of a standard to analyze this data. And that is a challenge. The extraction, transformation, and loading is also other challenge. For instance, in that 100 courts, I have to develop web scraping methods, 100 different web scraping methods to extract, to gather the data. So we have a huge work here to gather the data and transformate this data on useful information. And after that, to decide what statistical method, data visualization method, and tools to apply, and also to improve decision making. Here, in the improving decision making, we have another challenge, because not always our user knows what she or he wants. Okay? And so here we have a big challenge. Going deep about data science applying to law, we have, I'm a member of habeas data. I believe you have heard about habeas corpus, that free the body to free some person from prison, for instance. I'm trying to free the data, in the case in Brazil. So we are a research group, a multidisciplinary team. I'm the coordinator of IT team. I'm responsible to gather the data and to provide the data sets to the other members of my research group. First for the statisticians, and after that to the lawyers. The statisticians will apply a statistical method, and the lawyers will analyze the result. And if the result do not attend the lawyer, that life cycle I show you, we put again and again working until we'll have this information for decision making. Okay, we conduct empirical research with real data and with application in real scenarios. So I will present some results of our research. The first one here, so I don't know, but in South America, the car wash operation, it was a very huge operation against corruption. Not so in Brazil, but in Peru, also I believe in Paraguay too. And in Brazil, you have more than 100 defendants in this operation, and more than 100 lawsuits. And we got some studies related to the car wash. And here we apply a technique about network analysis. And we are trying just to understand regarding one lawsuit and the defendants of that lawsuit, what are the links about this defendants and that lawsuits? We discover a lot of interesting things, mainly related to the President Lula and the other politicians. At the beginning, President Lula was pointed as the center of this corruption scheme. But analyzing the network and the lawsuits, he was not. Okay, we had some interesting results here. So, using this QR code, you have this access to this network here. You can interact, you can change the view, etc. In mobile phones, I guess it's not so interesting because you need more space and the screen space is not so interesting. It's a data visualization problem regarding the computer size and you need a challenge. But I have here the link in the computer side, in the personal computer, you can explore this data deep. So here I have another example. Is yeah, okay. This animation is starting. We apply here the process mining technique. The process mining is a technique for production, and this technique we can analyze the flow of lawsuits. That was another project related to the Brazilian National Council, and they are interested in how was the flux among the lawsuits, which stage that lawsuits pass through. And here you can observe the stages here, and here we can observe the lawsuits. We analyze here more than 1 million of lawsuits. And we can identify some gaps. For instance, here we have a gap, here we have a gap, here we have a gap. And we are going deep to these steps to understand what are those steps and how to improve this gap here to get the lawsuits quickly to solve. In Brazil, in average, you have more or less 10 years to solve a lawsuit, depending of the subject. Okay? And going a little bit more, I will talk a little bit about my area, a research area nowadays, related to the artificial intelligence. I'm applying the artificial intelligence. I'm not developing methods, but just applying methods of artificial intelligence. And for that, I apply some methods of natural processing language, classifications of decision to improve decision making. And talk a little bit about improved decision making. Here you have a system developed for a student of mine. He is a master's student now. His undergraduate monography. He developed a prediction system where you input a lawsuit step, and it gives for the judge, for instance, or for the lawyer, the probability of decision regarding one court, regarding the subject, etc. What's the probability of to be positive or negative that asking someone is making to the justice? Okay, here we have some input information then we have the probability here, the chance of to be positive or negative, okay? From the point of view of artificial intelligence regarding 100 curts in Brazil, for one curt, for instance, São Paulo, it was our training data set, it was really good results. But when we change to the other tribunal, we not have the same result. Why? Because the cultural differences mainly, okay? So, one of the big problems in applying artificial intelligence in the law is related to the bias. Artificial intelligence, as I told you, have a different, mainly in Brazil, have a different kind of decisions for the same law, considering different regions. We found that with an empirical research. And what is an interesting area to research, the explainable artificial intelligence. That system I show you, our objective now for that same student, he is a master degree now, and he is trying to apply explainable artificial intelligence. What is this? To tell how artificial intelligence make that decision, okay? That's a challenge that there is no so much studies in this area, and we are trying to contribute, mainly to the judiciary management, okay? Brazilian Council, Justice of Council, is funding this research. So, here you have a link of University of São Paulo if you have more information. We have an agreement with the University of Katowice, specifically my faculty. And that's it, my first speech here. Thank you so much. I'm glad to answer your questions after Professor Evert speech. Thank you so much. Dziękuję.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor. Just now, we would like to ask for presentation of Professor Evert Blanco. Professor Evert, the floor is for you. Yes.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Hello? So, I was watching the video of Paraguay, and they said we don't have doorbells. Interesting, that's true. Because we hate that. So we clap. Because if we have a doorbell, we don't pay attention. I mean, if you have a doorbell, people won't show up. So even if they have doorbell, you have to clap. I don't know why, it's just us. So how are you? And I see a lot of young people here, right? All of you are, yes? A lot of young people. I am from Paraguay, probably the only Paraguayan you know. So I'm the most famous Paraguayan in this place, right? So the reason I asked if you're like really young is because I teach the first semester of the Faculty of Economic Science, especially in administration, business administration. So a lot of my students are they're kind of confused. They don't know what to do. They chose that, but they have some doubts, right? And it's hard because sometimes when you finish a career, you realize that that's not really what you want to do. Sometimes you spend 6 years studying something, and then you realize you like another stuff, right? For example, I wanted to be a rock star, but I went to law school because I don't know how to sing. I loved rock and roll, but obviously, I'm not that good. I'm a decent lawyer, average, I would say. And I start teaching. I mean, I don't know if I'm good or not, but I like to talk. So maybe that's a good thing for a teacher. So when I start my classes, I ask all my students, what do you want to do? So I'm asking you guys, very young, what do you want to do with your life? Do you know? Yeah, I don't know either, so I'm 40. So we're okay. So, but most of them, after they think, they start thinking about that, and most of them now say they want to own their own business. Back in the days, it was different. Like my parents, for them, the most important thing was stability. Maybe it has to do with the post-war generation. They wanted stability. But for us, especially for you guys, stability is not that important anymore. Stability is something like you stuck, right? So now people want to be independent. People want to be free. They want to move around. Like what Professor Rodello said, they want to be nomads sometimes. Right? They want to work in a distance. They don't want to have a boss. They don't want to have a clique for work. So it's an interesting situation nowadays. So we, as Latin American, we have a market which is called Mercosur. It's between Brazil, Paraguay, Argentina, and Uruguay, and some other countries, but they are the main partners. It is like the European Union, but it is like the European Union in the 1970s, probably. I'm not an expert on that, but we want to replicate what you have, this amazing union that is Europe. Obviously, we're very young people. I mean, my country is only 200 years old. Poland is like 1,000 years old, right? So we still have a lot to learn. Yeah? Oh. I'm not a good, I don't, yes. I could sing a song right now, but, oh, wait. Okay, so this is basically, I don't want to read that, but you can take a look. In 1999, it started the negotiations between the European Union and Mercosur for a trade agreement. It's been negotiated for over 20 years. And they still, I mean, they agree on almost everything, but now they had to ratify it in each country. Imagine, like, how many countries are there in the European Union? 27 different countries, right? In Mercosur, we are more, I would say we are more alike, especially for languages, history. I mean, the Portuguese and Spanish are not that different. And I thought like Polish and Russian were alike, and I was wrong because it's completely different. Is it or not? Right? Or, I don't know, another language from Romanian, for example. All the languages are different, all the stories are, even though are related, but they're a little bit of differences. So, and we want to trade with you guys. I mean, we desperately need. We need the money from that the markets in Europe could give us. And we can offer something for you guys. So I thought maybe I can offer a business idea for you. What do you think? You want to make some money? I do. So basically, I'm going to explain what is the trade about. So we have some tariff, like and limitations between, to do commerce between Latin America and Europe. We can offer what? What do you think Latin America can offer to Europe? Exactly. We can offer you food because we produce a lot of it. Between Argentina, Brazil is probably the largest producer of soy and wheat of the world, coffee. So we can offer cheap food, especially now that we have some problems in Europe, right? Ukraine used to be the provider of that. And with this problem, I think we should look for other places, right? So I think we can offer that. And Europe can offer technology, can offer good products. All the products are like manufactured products. And that's the idea of this agreement, this trade agreement. So we can free all the tariff and limitation from manufactured products from Europe to Mercosur and to food and other types of commodities to Europe. That's at least is the idea. There's a lot of criticism of that, especially in Europe. Why do you think would be the criticism of the Europeans regarding our food? What do you think would be the problem? Genetics, maybe? What else? What? Can you say again?
People are generally afraid of something different. So
Probably, but the main fear is that we don't comply a lot. Remember, we're South Americans. And the European Union is a very strict. Poland, Germany, France, they have strict regulation. So they say, Latin America, what are you doing? You're not going to lie to me? You said you send a good product, an environmental free product, but you're using pesticides. And here the farmer of Poland or the farmer in France, they're complying, they're using all the natural products. It's not fair, right? But imagine, it's a market of almost 800 million people. It's a lot of people. And you need to eat, right? And we need fancy stuff. We need cars, German cars. We need Polish cars, right? We had Opel. How many car manufacturers there are here in Poland? See it? So imagine, now the tariff of the manufactured products from Europe to South America, they pay around from 35% to 25, 15%. So the main products of export would be cars, machinery, and chemical products. So I think Poland is a very industrial, they had a lot of industries, and it can definitely offer something. And maybe let's make a deal with Paraguay. Paraguay is small, but we had something to offer. Like I said, the negotiation started in 1999. And look at that. That's the amount of money that they are trading now. 45 billion euros. That's a lot of money. And that if all the countries of the European Union ratifies this, that can duplicate, triple, or who knows, right? Who knows what's going to happen? And for us, it's great. A lot of people think it's too difficult to do it. But in my opinion, we can do it. So imagine you guys, you want to start a business, I was speaking with the vice director. He said, Poland is a great place to start a business. So in Paraguay is also decent to start a business. You can start a company in 4 days for completely free. You only need your passport. You don't need anything else. You might need a partner in Paraguay. You can call me if you like, and we can start that company. And we can start searching for alternatives. Because imagine, this world is being united. I mean, can you see that? We are in Poland speaking in English. Imagine this 20 years ago. Almost impossible, right? And now everything is changing. We're open to the world. There are always some groups of people, they don't want us to be united as the world. Like they say the Kardashian scale, like we're arriving at type 1 civilization or something, right? We had one language, we had one sport, football, right? And we relate to each other, even though we live so far away. So I think it's a good idea. So these are the goals, like more specific of the things that I mentioned. The criticisms, especially from Austria, France, the farmers, they are very protected because they think when, especially when they were very critical of Bolsonaro in Brazil, because he didn't want to protect the Amazons. But now that changed because the new President Lula is very oriented on open to the world again. So our hopes are really high now. And then I say, we can be partners, people, Paraguay and Poland. We can definitely be partners and make some money, right? So you can see a little bit of Paraguay. Paraguay is very small compared to Brazil and Argentina, but you can see there Paraguay is a very big, sizable country. It's bigger than England, bigger than most of the countries in Europe. We are poor. The GDP, you see, is pretty low. What is your GDP now in Poland? Do you know? Could be around $20,000. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Do you think Poland is a rich country? In the middle. Okay. And do you think Poland has the potential to be a future leader in Europe? I like that. You are. That's true. Because, according to what I investigate, the prospect of Poland are very positive. For the next, maybe in the next 15, 20 years, you will be one of the leading countries in terms of economics in Europe and probably in the world. We have a good thing in Paraguay. We had lots and lots of people. So we can hire a lot. And they're very young. And they are very cheap. We are very cheap. It's a cheap country. And Paraguayans love to work. So, what do you think? We can open a business. So, as you see there, our electricity is 100% clean. Why is that? Because we have 3 big dams, Itaipu, Yacyretá, and Acai, and they produce all the electrical energy that we use. So it's abundant and it's free. You see, Poland, I was doing some research, and you have a strong economy, so you can help us be better. you are helping me now because I'm here. I'm learning how to do proper research. In Paraguay, the research part, it's terrible. We're not that good. And I can see here, when I'm speaking with Professor Małgorzata, the vice rector, you're doing a lot of work on that. So we want to replicate that. So we can be business partners, but we can also be academic partners. And we can learn a lot from you. And you also have strong military, so you can protect us. I don't know, who knows? We want to be protected. And an example or a way of doing this collaboration would be, I was doing some case study with my student, and we found this Mesa de Finanzas Sostenibles. I would tell you this in my next presentation. So let's work together, guys. What do you think? Thank you.
Now, time for questions and comments. So maybe I propose to first Professor Joanna to ask questions and give comments on presentations. Yes, please, Professor.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure to listen to your presentations, your both presentations, very interesting. Especially that I really focus in my research on your region, I mean Latin America. I'm a specialist on the crisis, and it happens a lot in your regions, in all the countries, and in between the countries, but thanks a lot that you didn't talk about the crisis, but the potential and the good sides of the economies. And I have a lot of questions. I have a lot of notes. Probably we will not go in deeply into all of them, but still I'm really interested in some further research on the field you, Professor, mentioned about the car wash. But let's explain shortly to our students, because you know, in Brazil and in the whole region, car wash like the most famous corruption affair ever. But maybe here in Poland we don't talk that much about this dark side of your political and business network. But going back to 2014, I believe the car wash started as the affair. Probably more or less, yes. It was 2014 that they discovered first signs of the corruption affair, and then a lot of lawyers engaged in this affair and just were able to discover the links between the business, the biggest and the most important corporation in Brazil, and a lot of politicians, and from both opposition and the leading parties, everybody was engaged. And you talked about your research that touched this problem. So you use the data analysis and you link with all the lawyers. And I find it really exciting that you engage in this project. But I would like to ask you, if this is possible from your side, from your university, because you are based in the university and you are a researcher, yeah? Is it possible to manage all this research, you know, in cooperation with the lawyers? I mean, so many lawyers, and also from the other countries, because this corruption affair, Lava Jato, I mean car wash, is not your Brazilian story, but also with the links to Peru, to Panama, to Mexico, to Paraguay as well, all the countries. Yeah? So how do you manage to build all the links with so many people, I mean lawyers in all these countries, and if you have any network of research cooperation with the researcher, as you are in USP, but in other universities across the region, is it really possible to build such an intense network of cooperation between the researchers and lawyers, you know, across the region?
Okay. Thank you for your question. This is a really good question. So the car wash was an operation against corruption. I'm, as Brazilian, I'm not, how do I say, I'm ashamed about that. It starts, as you told, in 2014, but I believe after President Dilma's impeachment in 2016, it got stronger, the investigation. It involves at first big companies, construction big companies, and a lot of politicians. Yes, in the beginning of our research, we thought about, so let's study the whole network, including Paraguay, Peru, etc. We tried to connect some links to Peru at first, but for a while we give up the idea because analyzing from the data science point of view, we have a hard work to organize the data just for the Brazilian point of view. We had exactly 2,145 lawsuits, more or less, and a lot of defendants. And we are trying to organize that for politicians' positions, for the companies. So we had a lot of problems to organize the data. And we are really trying a connection, an interchange with Peru. I had a connection with a professor there, but for a while it is in standby because it's not possible to gather the data of justice in Peru, for instance. In Brazil, we have a law called the transparency law, where that data we are working on is public. The courts must to publicize the data. Then we can get the data. And in Peru, it's not the same situation. You need to ask to get this data, and it's very hard for us. That's the reason because we are not studying the other connections for a while.
Okay, so anyhow, you have a lot of to study on and to make research on. And I would like to ask maybe not only about this particular field, but all the field of your study. Is it possible to unit students, I mean, to your research? Because as here in Poland, we have like one of our objectives, yes, to invite students to our projects, and we sometimes we really encourage young people, young scientists to join our projects as they can help collecting data and also, you know, making some basic research on this. Is it possible, the same situation possible in Brazil, and especially in this case, because it's like a very sensitive story, I believe. But you say that the data is open, so probably the research results of your study also is open for the public. So is it possible to engage students to this research and put it open to everybody after having made this research?
It's a very specific topic for the Brazil, okay, the car wash operation. But we work with the open data, and always the data are free. If you want the data, I can send you the data without any problem. Okay, we involve undergraduate and graduate students. In ABIA's data group, we have more or less 20 students working with us. We have a funding from Brazilian National Council and also the university. But yes, the data is open. You can work on that. I believe the barrier is the Portuguese language. Yes, it's open. And for me, it's a pleasure to share our results. Some of that results are not available because in agreement of a Brazilian Justice Council, we have a statement that we need to ask to Brazilian Council to publish. But they are open.
Okay, and another question, because you talked about the research on artificial intelligence, and I believe this is like one of the most important topics right now, and also in the light of the GPT chats and all this that touches of the topic. So what do you think is or are main directions of research on AI, I mean this field in Brazil now? So what do you base your research on, and what will be in the closest future the most important direction?
So the processing natural language is an interesting challenge. First, because Portuguese language has, how do I say, difference in terms of syntax. Sometimes the same word have different meanings depending of the semantic construction of the phrase. And that's a challenge to be overcome, the first. After that, among the lawyers has an specific language. And it is also another problem.
Yes, here in Poland we observe the same.
We like to confuse people.
And sometimes when I was developing the artificial intelligence system, I had the support of a lawyer, a professor of law, and always I've asked to her, so if this situation, the result is that, she always answered to me, oh, depending on. So, but I needed a standard, I said to her, but there is no standard. Depending on the judge, depending on the region, you have different decisions for the same law. And I said, so, how do I resolve the situation? At the first moment, I think with myself, okay, I will give up because it's very hard. But so, no, I'm a researcher and I need to solve this problem. And we are trying to solve this problem now. And also solving the bias problem. Depending on the situation, you have biases on decisions. And sometimes, one result, interesting result we discovered regarding the car wash. Besides you have a lot of lawyers in Brazil, just a small group is working in the lawsuits. They specialized in this kind of a subject, and when observe the data, we just, oh, why it's so not so much lawyers are working on this case? It's a kind of a monopoly. That's interesting results we had there.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. People from audience, do you have any questions, comments concerning the presentations? Not yet.
I think it's a very specific topic.
Very.
Okay, so
There is a question, yeah?
I have my questions if you don't, but please take your time.
The mic is needed for speaker, for professor here in the first row. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Yeah, I was wondering about the differences that you were mentioning, the differences between European countries, and I'm representing Portugal here, so and Latin American countries. And in many Latin American countries, I've visited Paraguay only once and Brazil many times, but the informal economy is quite big there. I don't like to call it informal economy. This is an economic school, right? I like to call it natural economy, right? Because what is this informal economy? Informal economy is everything that we've done since we started, being humankind and trading. Then taxes appeared, and then, we are distinguishing between the informal economy, the economy that every human being has done forever, and the economy that the governments are doing. So in Latin American countries, informal economy is quite big. So you invited, students to go there, make business with you. Here in Europe, informal economy is always trying to be controlled. Yeah, I'm not sure how it works in Poland, but in Portugal, it's quite highly controlled. But in Latin American countries, it's more, it's quite big as far as I understand. So, what would you advise these students if they go there? How could they adapt to such, a different system? So I'm talking about cultural differences. I'm not talking about, laws and things. Thank you.
Okay. This is a very interesting question. And the problem, we have a problem, Latin people especially. We need somebody in our back to be, you gotta change, otherwise, because if it's for us, we won't change. So that is another reason why I personally want this trade to be implemented. Why? Because we need to change our policies. Like, remember you, Poland, when you first got into the European Union, you gotta do a lot of changing on your economical policies, and it's difficult, but you did it, right? And I think that if somebody pushes us, like the European Union pushes, and we see the advantages, we will change. It takes time. But if you want to make business now, it could be complicated. It could be. But they're also changing. Myself, I just created a company. It was an American that went to Paraguay, and he wanted to export meat, and a special cut of meat, to the United States. And he did the research and found that Paraguay has the perfect cow, the perfect soil, and the perfect cut of meat. And he was also very scared of that. So you can start a company in Paraguay for free. You can open a society for free. It takes, like I said, 1 week. And I didn't charge him, I charged like 1 million guaraníes, which is nothing. But some other lawyers, they were asking for $10,000, $5,000. So he was like, he was confused, very informal. And I told him, because the problem also in Latin America is we don't have the tendency to look for the long term. So we see a foreigner, we could take advantage of that. But I think that is also changing. Very slow, but it is changing. So we need to think in the long term, and the agreement will help us with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? For me, by the way, Paraguay is really very curious, because you can imagine 100% of energy is clean energy, absolutely. No coal, no pollutions. On the other side, very low taxes. Yeah? Could you say something, because it has consequences, yeah? There is no public expenditures. Yeah?
Yes,
No.
it's like 10% of everything.
10% taxes. But the consequences is that you have no highways. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is,
The problem also, people don't believe in the institutions. So that's why they don't want to pay taxes. Like, I was listening to the professor yesterday from New Zealand, and for them it was so important, the trust, not only among people, but among the institutions. And we still far ahead of that. We need to trust more. We don't trust. That's another issue.
And, could you please comment more on the issue that interests me especially so much? Because you told about the possible implementation of the agreement between Mercosur and the European Union. And, you know, I wrote my master thesis several years ago about this agreement, just stating the thesis that, yes, it is to happen very soon. And then past 20 years, just on negotiating. And, you know, we have the product, I mean, in 2019, but it's 4 years ago that we just agreed on some issues that, yes, we want to implement this. And still, nothing happened, really, because we don't have the implementation. So the legislative process is still to happen. And I know all the doubts on the European side, and also Poland has some doubts because, as you mentioned, we are the food producer, and for us Paraguay and also Brazil is like, you know, the opposite story of this food production, because you produce this probably better and especially cheaper. But still, there are many questions about the quality, of course. But I would like to ask you, how do you assess the real chances of the implementation on the Latin American side, I mean on the Mercosur side? So are you really towards this implementation, or do you just have more doubts than pros in this process?
Well, in my opinion, I did. Obviously, you probably know way more than I. Mercosur is not a problem now. Mercosur is willing to take this huge market. Bolsonaro, he kind of like didn't like, but he's not in the government anymore. There's some problems that, and we had to be honest here, right? The food producers of Europe, they are one of the main detractors of the treatment, because they get in subsidies almost 40% of the whole budget of the European Union. It's a lot of money, right? And they have a lot of control. They're a very strong group of people. And I think I did a little research. I might be wrong, but the European Union maybe want to change that. And that was one of the reasons of the implementation of this agreement. And maybe Europe is the one that has to be trust more, maybe. We could change. We could definitely change.
I keep my fingers crossed, you know, for this agreement, really. But I just wonder if we are not to renegotiate this, because, you know, after 4 years, after the pandemic, after the global changes concerning the Russia attack on Ukraine, that here in this part of Europe is really, really, you know, the game changer. Probably we should have a different view on these chances that opportunities, yes, that gives us this agreement and closer relationships between Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay, and our countries. And I would like to ask you, Professor Ildeberto, also about how do you see the possibilities of the common research between Mercosur countries and European countries? I mean, are there any real procedures, maybe regulations that really help this? And how would you assess all this important problem? I mean, I'm really interested in the research cooperation between Polish universities and Brazilian, Paraguayan, but maybe a bit wider.
Firstly, I'd like to give us some comments about Mercosur. I'm not a specialist on trading or something like that. In my point of view, it's an interesting field of opportunities. So if you make some kind of a SWOT analysis, I believe we have interesting opportunities between European Union and Mercosur. In fact, Mercosur is not all countries in South America agree about Mercosur. That's the truth there. Brazil, Paraguay, Argentina, Uruguay, Chile, okay, but some countries are not so, I don't know, interested, but regarding the government, the style for right or for left, etc., I'm not discussing politics, but they have some kind of resistance, isn't it? Okay. That vision is changing when we change the government in Brazil. The last president was not so open to that, and the nowadays president is open to this kind of trade. It was not communicated, but in the visit of China last week, I believe he discussed about that, because it's not so interesting to China, Brazil make some kind of agreement with Union European, because we have a very strong trade with China, and all the world moves like that, more or less. Okay, so I observe very good opportunities for both sides. We have a strong agriculture, and the possibility to exchange technology with you, with Poland or Union European. In my point of view, in addition to the academics, I believe academics is a very strong cooperation between Brazilian universities, mainly University of São Paulo, and other European universities, not just in Poland, but in Germany, in France. We received in my university at least 20 students from France every semester. I have a special course for French students there. Yeah. And I observe the increasing audience of other countries as Belgium, German, in receiving a student there. And we are also, you'll be welcome there. I have noticed that 2 Brazilian students was here in the last years, but we are not, never received students for University of Katowice there. And we are open to that. Okay, we are welcome there. We are very open people to friendships and whatever. Okay, regarding the opportunities, I believe academic will have a solid possibilities. And for trading and technology transfer, I'm positive with this agreement Evert told us that will be facilitating our cooperation. I think so.
Well, I agree mostly with what he said. We are, at the National University of Asuncion, we would like to have students from Europe, especially now Poland. And that would be a good starting point to understand our country, right? So before we start a business, you can start to understand our culture. We are very friendly, like the Brazilians. We like to gather around, easy to be friends with, and that is the special aspect about Paraguay, that we are very warm people. Like all the people that I spoke with that visit the country say, "Oh, you guys are very nice. Relax."
Yes, that's true. Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, I think that for years there was a problem with language. And mostly from Latin America, the students went to Spain, to Portugal, from Brazil, but Eastern Europe was separate countries, and just now maybe they changed it, and we have globalization, and a lot of students that travel more, and teachers also, so there's opportunities are created for exchange. Yeah.
Yes, but still more and more young people here in Poland learn Spanish as the second language. So probably all of you here speak English perfectly, but how many of you really know Spanish? Can you just sign it?
Yeah,
Who knows
over
Spanish?
there.
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
More people
but
just
hablas-
show.
hablas
Spanish music
español?
is popular now, like Bad Bunny,
Yeah.
reggaeton. You know, do you listen to Spanish music?
Yeah. ¿Quién habla español?
Yeah. And Mary.
Yeah.
Hola, España.
Okay.
Okay.
¿De qué parte de España son? Qué lindo. Quiero conocer España. Sorry, I was
Next question.
So,
how many of you
change
have
my
Portugal?
castellano, my cheap Spanish.
Yes. Next questions in Spanish, please.
So I agree, Brazilian, the Portuguese is a barrier, the language is a barrier. But the experience of the French students there is very interesting. We offer Portuguese classes to learn how to survive in Portuguese language. But we are very friendly, as I told you, and the most foreign students live with other Brazilian students. And I said the best environment to learn Portuguese is not our classes, but the parties, the university parties. It's incredible. For 1 week to another, they improve a lot the vocabulary on Portuguese.
I just know many students that went without knowing a word in Portuguese, went to Brazil, and just after 1 week of having a boyfriend from Brazil, they spoke perfect Portuguese. So having a boyfriend or girlfriend from Brazil really helps,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
We can go to the carnival, right? In Rio.
Yeah, that's just for a period.
So you see there is an opportunity of investment in girls.
Another reason to go and see.
You can learn how to dance. There's so many things you can do.
At the most of times we just talk about the funny side, but we have, as I told you, very interesting opportunities there, very interesting companies, mainly for agriculture. I'll talk about that in the next section. We are open to discuss. We have a very corruption. It was a black page of our history, but I believe we can change that.
But you have Amazonia, so
Yeah.
so it is for tourists or not for tourists.
We have opportunities there. Even in Brazil, we need more opportunities to Amazonia. The government now has a different point of view about Amazonia. I agree with this point of view, and I think Amazonia is not just important to Brazil, but important to the whole world.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
we need to preserve.
I don't want to be bad policeman, but unfortunately I need to kill the discussion. Anyway, I'm so happy that finally, because at the very beginning we start with all the problems, with the corruptions and so on, which also influence on the business, but finally we find very positive things, and a part of the very high business we can also have a lot of pleasure and enjoy the party in Latin America, and your positive spirit. Actually, I think that they will be the one of the biggest input into the Europe, because we need your energy and the positive way of thinking. So thank you very much for the first session, for the first debate. Right now, I would like to invite you for the coffee break, like 20 minutes. And in 20 minutes, I would like to welcome you or the other students or other professors again in the classroom. Thank you so much for a very interesting presentation.